last stand on Earth.
All Things Saine with Representative Saine. Good morning to you. You're listening to All Things Saine with State Representative Saine. I am your host, and joining me today in studio, good friend of mine, Jeff Pillars. Welcome to the show, sir.
Is this thing on?
Is this thing on? It is.
Somebody freshen up my drink. What time is it?
We need a little more, actually. Hey, it's great to have you on.
Nice to be here, man. I wanted to be here in the beginning and couldn't work it out with my schedule, but today it was worth the drive. It's nice. That's the farthest I've driven in 10 years.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Wow.
And
wow.
I was just soaking it up. I loved it.
And it's a beautiful day to do it,
Oh,
too.
yeah.
Well, it is the inaugural, or not inaugural, I guess the annual Great Sign Harvest Day. It's the day after the election. So it's, you know,
right.
the Great Pumpkin brings the signs and does it for about a month. And then the day after, it's the Great Sign Harvest.
Well, they're letting the crops rot out by where I live because the signs are still up. And the signs are still up from 2020, to be honest, some places. It's ridiculous out there.
Well, you live out, what, Union County
Union
area?
County, Mineral Springs, right between Waxhaw and Monroe.
Yeah.
Yeah, love it.
Well, glad you made the drive today, and we're going to catch up, do lunch afterwards. And longtime friend, first time appearance on the show. So
yeah,
great to have you.
Thanks, you buddy.
A little later in the show, at the 11:15, after the 11:15 break, we're going to have Greg Gebhardt on. He's the executive director of Military Missions in Action, a North Carolina founded and focused veterans nonprofit that is dedicated to assisting their loving, supporting families, dedicated to assisting veterans in need, members of all armed forces, and does a lot. And Greg's been a longtime friend. He's also an Iraq war veteran and continues to serve in the North Carolina National Guard, where he commands the 105th Engineer Battalion out of Rayford, North Carolina. And as battalion commander, he's responsible for the 500-plus citizen soldiers at armories in Rayford, Laurinburg, Rockingham, Mount Airy, Butner, Mocksville, and Lexington. So it'll be good to have Greg on. We have Veterans Day this week, so we should always celebrate our veterans, but particularly think about them this week. So we'll have him on, and we'll talk a little bit about elections. My good friend Chris Carney smoked him in his mayoral race. He had previously served on town council some years ago. I can't remember how long ago it's been, but over a decade. And made a comeback and come back in a big way. I think it was like 81, 82%.
Wow.
And so he's strong showing. But we'll talk more about that. And then I think last I looked, Tart Bakari held on down in the city of Charlotte. That was another close race.
300 and something votes?
Yeah.
Man.
And, you know, they took out everything, this kitchen sink and all of it, and threw it at him. But he did well, survived. He and Ed Driggs, I think, are the two sole surviving Republicans in the city of Charlotte. So glad to see that happening from my perspective, and probably one of the best things that could happen to the city of Charlotte, whether they know it or not. But all interesting things. We did not have local elections in Lincoln County, where I represent. We moved those elections as a cost saver to taxpayers some years ago. So all of our local elections are held in even years, and not a bad thing to do, because you can save taxpayers a little bit of change when you do that. But we are here on the show in studio. Last week was doing it from home, doing it here today, and just glad to have my good buddy Jeff with me. A lot going on, and then a lot of nothing going on. We finished session as we told you, so I am tan, ready, and relaxed. So it's nice to be back home. You've spent some time in radio, done a little bit of a
23 years.
Wow.
23 years.
Oh, it's awesome to have you on.
There's only so many fart jokes you can tell.
Right.
You know, and you start recycling them after about the third year. That's my resume.
Well, which is a nice resume. You've, if people are listening to your voice and you sound familiar, you've been on some other local shows.
Mm-hmm.
Not quite as big as this one, but
you got to do what you got to do.
Yeah, I know. It's John Boy and Billy fame, and
yep.
A lot of voiceovers and commercials that you hear.
Video games, voiceovers, commercials.
Yeah, you've done it all.
Podcasts. Oh my God, it's just a non-ending.
Well, absolutely glad to have you on today.
Happy to be here, man. Nice to be someplace.
Yeah. Well, hey, it beats the alternative, doesn't it?
Yep.
As I always tell people, I did see the sunshine this morning, so.
Is that what that is?
Well,
I don't even remember.
It hurt my eyes, actually. I didn't like it all that much. Particularly don't like this time change. You may follow what I've tried to do, which is at least pass a resolution that says, hey, we'd like to stick to one time. I picked daylight savings time. Quite frankly, I'd stick with either one. I don't have that big a preference, but the time change kills me. I don't know does it mess with you that much?
Well, I live on 15 acres, and I've got 100 animals. So I got to get up at 4 and get everybody fed, and then I'm doing something in the dark, no matter when. So the time change really doesn't affect me that much because I'm kind of used to doing it all like that. But it's just the aggravation of having to reset the clocks and do all this other stuff. I mean, I understand for farmers why they do it. I understand. I totally get it. Parents with their kids at the bus stop don't want to be there in the dark. I 100% understand. But it's just, I mean, it just seems like just so unnecessary.
So you're saying the animals don't understand the time change?
They don't. I mean, when that time changes and I'm an hour late feeding,
Now that they know.
They know.
Yeah.
They know. They're out there waiting, tapping their watch, going, "Fat boy, what's the deal? What's the delay?
Man.
What are you watching the news? Let's go."
Well, I have hated it for years because, if you try to stick to any type of schedule and then it changes like that.
Right.
I can fly to the West Coast, come back, my body adjusts,
Yeah.
it's no big deal. But for whatever reason, when that time change happens in my regular life, it takes me 2.5 weeks to just adjust. So I know people have been suffering through that all week.
The only time I ever had going back and forth the West Coast never bothered me. I did it for years. Going back and forth to South Africa, the way I did, that's a 7-hour time change.
Yeah.
Going down, no problem. Coming back, it took me weeks.
Oh, I'm sure it did.
Weeks and weeks and weeks.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I did the same thing. I did a trip to Israel, when it was safe to do a trip to Israel.
Sure.
And I think it's a 5-hour time change there. And that was brutal coming back. Once I got there, it was fine.
Yeah. Why is that? Going over is no problem. Coming back was just murder.
I think part of it's the excitement, right?
That's probably
going to be
true.
something new.
Yeah.
And then you've had a full trip and now you're tired. That's probably it. But I'm not a doctor, but I play one on the radio. Also not a lawyer, but I play one on the House floor. It's very nice. We pass laws, do things like that. You're listening to All Things Saine. Here in just a moment, we're going to have Greg Gebhardt on. He's a good friend. It is, I'm going to call it Veterans Week for lack of a better term. We should do it more than a day for sure. But he is the Executive Director of Military Missions in Action, so he'll be joining us. Look forward to that. I think we're going to have maybe a guest appearance from Chris Carney and Tart Bakari here soon. They'll call in probably around the 11:45 time frame. We'll catch up with them and let them do a little victory lap. I know that Tark was, as Joe Bruno was posting last night on Twitter or X, whatever they're calling it these days, that I think they were doing shots at Selwyn Pub in celebration for Tark Bakari. Who could blame him, right?
Yeah, no kidding.
But hey, we won't do shots. Unfortunately, I think I forgot the bottle, Jeff. It's my oversight.
I've got one in the car. You don't have to go far.
We travel with one.
Yep.
But it is great to have you on the show, and we'll have them on as well. Talk a little politics and elections and everything else. You're listening to All Things Saine here on WSIC. We do the show every week, and you can find the podcast on Apple Podcasts. You can find it on Spotify. You can find it just about anywhere you find a podcast. You can also even watch us on YouTube. And I think the eye candy that's being provided today would be phenomenal for most viewers.
You can't beat it.
We appreciate you listening. We'll be back in just a moment with Greg Gebhardt.
There's more All Things Saine with NC Representative Jason Saine on the way from the new 105.9 100.7 WSIC.
Here's your WSIC community calendar. Santa's coming to town. Come out to Birkdale Village from 2 to 7 p.m. next Saturday, the 18th. Activity Row, Birkdale on Ice, beer garden, dance performances, and the tree lighting parade. Dance away the end of the night with live music. Saturday, November 18th. The fun begins at 2 p.m. and the tree lighting ceremony starts at 6. For more info, visit birkdalevillage.com. Love bingo? $1 bingos this Friday starting at 1:30 at the Iredale Senior Center. That's at 344 East Front Street. Bring $1 and your own snacks to play. $1 bingo this Friday, 1:30 to 3:30, Iredale Senior Center. Ever wanted to witness a time capsule installation? Huntersville is having a special time capsule installation December 2nd at Veterans Park during their Huntersville Christmas celebration. I wonder what will be in the time capsule. Make plans to attend now. Visit huntersville.org for more info. December 2nd, a special time capsule installation in Huntersville. Singer-songwriter Mitch Russell is coming to Kane Center for the Arts this Saturday. You may know Mitch from America's Got Talent or from Garth Brooks' 2022 Stadium Tour. Buy your tickets before they sell out. kanearts.org. Country music artist Mitch Russell this Saturday. Doors open at 7 p.m. kanearts.org. Have an event you'd like to tell people about? Yard sales, estate sales, and everything in between? Visit WSICnews.com and click on events to submit your event today.
The Renaissance Festival is back Saturdays and Sundays now through November 19th. Save your dates. Don't miss the Renaissance Festival. Tickets available online only at renfestinfo.com while supplies last.
And now for a look at your weather forecast from the WSIC Weather Center. Beautiful day out there today. Sunny skies and that afternoon high getting near 80 degrees hardly feels like a mid-November day. As you head through the evening, skies are going to remain mostly clear, and that overnight low is not going to drop too low. We're only getting down around 55 tonight. This has been your weather forecast from the WSIC Weather Center.
76 years strong, and we're still the one. WSIC. News, talk, now.
If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth.
All Things Saine. Representative Saine.
We've got fun and games. We got everything you want, honey. We know the names. We are the people that can find.
Welcome to the jungle. You're listening to All Things Saine. I'm your host, Representative Jason Saine. Joining me today in studio, good friend Jeff Pillars. Jeff, glad to have you on.
I love that Joyner music. I love that guy.
You like that?
That guy, I've got like 3 of his albums.
So I find that stuff late at night when I can't sleep, you know, because I'm worried they might find the bodies and conscious won't let me go. And so I searched YouTube and I found a couple of his songs. It's like, oh, that's cool. I got to integrate that into the show.
Just doing them like lounge songs.
Yeah,
Lounge
yeah.
Against the Machine. It's just great.
Welcome to the jungle. He's got some great ones. I've got another one. What was it? Oh man, it's just tons of show tunes, but real, you know, regular songs.
I got another group for you to check out.
Yeah.
Lost Straitjackets.
Lost Straitjackets.
Lost.
Okay.
LOS.
LOS. Oh,
They dress like luchadors. They wear wrestling masks.
yeah.
And they do like 60s and 50s and 60s updated rock and roll numbers that they write.
I love that.
It's just great.
Oh, that's awesome.
It's just great. That'd be great bumper music too. You gotta try to find some.
I will have to find that. And you heard it here first. Joining us on video and as you will hear over the airwaves, my good friend Greg Gebhardt. He's the Executive Director of Military Missions in Action, a North Carolina founded and focused veterans nonprofit that is dedicated to assisting our veterans. Sir, welcome to the show. Great to have you on.
Thank you so much, Jason. Good to be with you and an honor. So thank you for allowing me to share a bit about our mission and what we do here at Military Missions in Action and, you know, the greater support from across the state, quite frankly, your listeners of All Things Veterans in North Carolina.
Well, we're proud to support and really want to just say a heartfelt thank you. I don't think we say thank you enough to those who are willing to serve and who have risked it all, and some have gave all. So we appreciate you and appreciate everybody that you serve with. We want to make sure that they understand that. And you're an Iraq war veteran yourself.
That's right. Yes, sir. So originally enlisted in the Army back in 2000, and very common with many veterans, you maybe don't plan to make it a career, but you fall in love with, with the discipline, with the sense of being part of something bigger than yourself. And so, enlisted in 2000 and have been in the military ever since. Did 8 years on active duty, deployed to Iraq in 2011 as a company commander, and returned back to North Carolina. I was stationed at Fort Bragg, and once I returned, my wife and I made North Carolina our home, and I transitioned to the North Carolina National Guard, where I still serve today. So still blessed to be able to wear the uniform and honored to serve the citizens of North Carolina in the Guard.
Well, it's an honor to know you, and you've got a beautiful family, and just a super guy. I mean, again, we met, I guess, first time you were working at the legislature. Maybe was that when we first met? Maybe before that even.
Yeah, maybe slightly before. It was probably the fall of 2011 or early 2012, maybe. But yeah, when I transitioned off to active duty, far more than you or your listeners probably care to know, but I would just like to highlight, my transition, unfortunately, was like many other veterans. And what I mean by that is, you go from wearing the uniform and being part of that organization that is the military. And then next thing you know, you transition off active duty and you're kind of a person without a home, so to speak. I didn't have my tribe. And I struggled with my transition, didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. And I decided to pursue politics and got into politics and, worked at the General Assembly there. And yes, that's where we crossed paths and been friends ever since. And I appreciate all that you've done and continue to do to support veterans and their families across the state.
Well, thank you for saying so. And so tell us more about Military Missions in Action. What do you do there?
Yeah, so we're a North Carolina founded and focused veterans nonprofit. We serve all 100 counties. We do 3 programs at Military Missions in Action. Fill the Footlocker. We do traditional care packages overseas to deployed service members through that program. We also do Christmas toys at Christmas time, and then we also do unhoused veteran stand-down kits. And what that is, Jason, is we take a lot of the toiletries and sundry items that we send overseas to soldiers. We dual purpose those, and we provide those in a backpack, a brand new backpack, weatherized, and hand those to veterans who unfortunately are unhoused. And we go to events all across the state to hand out those bags to help veterans that unfortunately are down on their luck and are residing on the streets. And so we've handed out close to 1,000 bags already this year. We were just in Macon County in Western North Carolina a couple weeks ago. I think we'll be in Craven County this weekend handing those bags out. So that's our Fill the Footlocker program. We also do Operation Building Hope. That's home modifications for veterans who need some modifications to remain in their homes. And then we also do Homes for Healing. That is essentially a furniture bank. We provide all home furnishings that any veterans or their family members would need. And through that program, really 8 to 9 out of 10 veterans that come to us through that program come through the VA. They have a HUD-VASH voucher. The VA finds them housing, and then we provide the home furnishings for them free of charge. And proud to say in 2023, we've made 90 deliveries across the state. Wow. From as far west as Asheville to as far east as New Bern and everywhere in between.
Wow.
I did a delivery myself up to Weldon, up on the Virginia border a couple weeks ago. So yeah, that's who we are and what we do in a nutshell.
Well, that is pretty awesome, and that's a great mission for sure. And I know greatly appreciated by those veterans that get to be the recipients of it. I'm sure it puts a lot of meaning into your life and gives you a lot of purpose.
It sure does. It does. And I don't know how much time you have. I'd be happy to share an anecdote.
Got all the time we need. You tell us, please.
I didn't know if you had to take a radio break or not, but
we will at 11:30, and then we can come back to you.
It is very purposeful and very meaningful to me. And I spoke at an event a couple weeks ago, and folks gathered items for us for our Fill the Footlocker program. And some of the items that they gathered were canned goods. And we don't do that type of food at Military Missions Action. We do, the beef jerkies, the nut mixes, the snacks that go overseas. But, I was very appreciative to have that donation, and I took it from the folks. And I'm driving home that night in my truck thinking, man, what am I going to do with these 2 grocery bags full of canned goods? And I show up at the warehouse the next day and talking to one of our volunteers. Side note, we are almost 100% volunteer driven. We only have 3 full-time employees. And so I was talking to one of our volunteers and I said, hey, Sue, what am I going to do with 2 bags of canned goods that we got last night at the speaking event I was at? And she said, Greg, I know exactly what we're going to do with those. We're helping a special forces veteran named Ruben in Harnett County in Coates. And she said, hey, Ruben called me this morning and shared with me that his bank account was $400 in the red and he didn't know how he was going to feed his family. And I said, you know what, Sue? I didn't know what I was going to do with those 2 bags of canned goods when I got them last night, but the Lord knew what we were going to do with those today. And so I drove him down to Coates and gave them to Ruben, talked with him for about 20 minutes and, just let him know, hey, we're there for you, man. We're happy to help you. We're there for you. For about the first 5 or 6 minutes that we chatted, Jason, he didn't make eye contact with me. He never looked up. And I suspect that's because he has a lot of pride, like all veterans do, right? And for him to have to acknowledge that he needed assistance was, I'm sure, very humbling for him because, I mean, this is a special operations soldier who spent his career at the tip of the spear, very likely doing, unspeakable things to bad people all across the globe. And in this moment, he needed a hand. He needed a hand up, and we were there to provide that for him. And I just told him, I said, hey, look, man, I grew up in a food insecure home myself. I'm not ashamed to admit it that, my mom needed help at times, and, the local food pantry and our church was there for us when I was a kid. And I'm just glad that, I can share this full circle moment with you, that I'm here to help you on behalf of Military Missions in Action. And there's no shame and no judgment. And, whatever you need, man, we're here to help you. And so, we bonded over our shared experience in the military, jumping out of airplanes. And then, I shared him my personal story. And, at the end of that 15, 20-minute interaction, he said, hey, look, I can't thank you enough for this. It means the world to me and my family. And when I get back on my feet, I would like to volunteer with Military Missions in Action. And that's a perfect example of why I do what I do, and why, our dozens of volunteers have given over 3,300 hours already this year in support of our mission. So yes, it's very purposeful, very meaningful, and obviously near and dear to my heart, Jason.
Well, and I know you to be just an upstanding guy, but you like everyone else has had experiences in your life. As I tell people, I've been humbled before, and I'm sure I'll be humbled again. But it's how you react to that, and quite frankly, how you treat other people. And I think those experiences mean more than anything. It's great to be riding on top, and when everything's going great for you, that's you want that, right? But at the same time, is what I tell my son. You never know where you meet people. You never know where they're at on the timeline of their life, right? And
that's right.
They may have been at the top of their game, and they may be at the bottom right now, or somewhere in between. But how we approach this, and particularly our veterans who have done so much, who've given so much, but really just people in general. Life is about relationships, and if you don't understand that, then you're probably missing out, right? But for those that understand that, and what you and I are talking about, I know that speaks to their heart, and really do appreciate all that you're doing. And we're going to keep you on. We go to the break, but we'll be live on video during the break if you're watching the show. And then, of course, we'll have you back on after the break. But you are listening to All Things Saine. Got my good friend Greg Gebhardt on here, Executive Director of Military Missions in Action. We'll be back with him shortly. I also got in studio, a real treat for me, Jeff Pillars, and a longtime friend, first-time co-host of the show.
It's a real treat for somebody anyway.
We'll be back in just a minute. Thanks for listening to All Things Saine.
That was a great story.
Yeah.
It only takes one of those.
That's it.
It only takes one.
Keep it right here.
Only takes one. Greg, thank you. That is a great story to share. And I mean, changes.
All it takes is one.
Yep.
One
That's
great
right.
story
And
like that makes all the difference in the world.
It sure does, Jeff. And there are days when you're slugging along, and you wonder, hey, am I making a difference in the world? Is anybody feeling the impact of our work? And then you have those interactions with Ruben. And what I didn't share with y'all was my middle daughter, my 9-year-old daughter, was homesick from school that day. So it was a daddy-daughter work day. And so she was with me, and it was a great teaching moment for my daughter.
Sure.
I'll say that, right? And so it was, to open her eyes that and Ruben's daughter was there too, actually. And so my daughter got to interact with his daughter a little bit. And it was an educational drive home, right? From that interaction about how, some people just at times need a hand up, and we're happy and blessed to be able to do it. And, the Lord has given us so much in our lives that we can give back to others. So yeah, it was awesome.
The thing that people don't understand, and you have to, and a lot of times it's hard to convey the message, is that what they're going through right now is a snapshot in time.
Amen. Yeah.
Yep. This is not forever. It's right now.
Yeah.
And this will all be in the past. But again, the impact of that situation will last with him and with you and with people that hear this for years and years and years to come.
Yeah. And Jason, you hit the nail on the head. You mentioned, sharing that with Jackson. You never know what people are on their journey in life, right? And they might be at the highest of highs, or, they might be at the lowest of lows and just need a little bit of empathy and grace. And unfortunately, in today's culture where we're always quick to act and judge immediately, I think if we just showed people a little bit more grace and empathy, the world will be a better place,
Well, it absolutely would be. You watch the I can't ever say that word. How toxic Twitter and social media are, right? People just, they're always coming in with their A game. I guess everything in their life is always perfect.
Yeah.
We'll be back in just a second.
Anything is a joke.
Be a part of the conversation.
We can't even trust the banks with our money.
This is WSIC News Talk Now.
If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth.
All Things Saine with Representative Jason Saine.
And we're back on All Things Saine here on WSIC. Joining me in studio today is my good friend Jeff Pillars, and my good friend right now who's on air with us, Greg Gebhardt. He's the Executive Director of Military Missions in Action. He was sharing with us some of the stories that some of the people that he's reached and been able to, as an organization, reach out to and make an impact into their lives. And again, relationships matter, man, and it's just awesome to hear some of the good stories. I think it does our heart good just to hear how good human beings can be to each other, particularly with everything else going on in the world right now.
Yeah, that's right. We see what's going on. Obviously, what's been going on for months in the Ukraine, and currently what's going on in Israel, and then what's going on the streets in the United States too. So, yeah, as we were talking during the break, you meet people every day. We cross paths with folks in our lives, and we don't know where they're at in their journey. And in this, today's day and age, where I think many of us think that people live a curated life on their smartphones, right? They only put the good stuff out there on Instagram or Facebook or X or whatever. But we're all humans. We're all dealing with struggles. We're all dealing with challenges in our life every day, and none of us are exempt from those. And so when you're able to, come alongside a veteran who, is hurting and probably needs help, it's really, it just really warms your heart to be able to be there for them. And, grace and empathy, I think, are two things that are lacking severely in today's modern society. And, again, I'm just blessed to work at an organization where we're able to come alongside folks in their time of need. And, Jeff, as you were saying during the break, that's not where they're always going to be, right? That's just a snapshot.
Yep.
Yeah. And so, so I appreciate you allowing me, the opportunity to share that story, Jason.
Well, no, I appreciate you sharing it with our listeners. Again, I always like to, as a dad, you want to provide to your kids. Hey, here's how you recenter yourself in life, right? And you and I have worked together in politics, and it's about as bad as sports or Hollywood, because everybody, gives you their best face every day, in their press release. I always tell our colleagues, hey, remember, you're never as good as your press release says, because you want to put forth the best part. What I mean by that, you want to put forth your best face for sure, right? But at the same time, you look at some of the toxic environment that's out there on social media, where people are just always attacking, and people, these keyboard warriors that apparently everything's going great in their life because they're so quick to jump on yours or someone else's. And that's just not who human beings are, right? We all have ups and downs. This is the nature of what we do. I had an opportunity years ago when our fire department was starting a charity, and they call it the ELF Project, which is East Lincoln Fire Department. So ELF, ELF Project seems like a great name for it, where they go and just what you were talking about, getting toys for kids at Christmas time who were underprivileged, who might not have a great Christmas, and it was humbling to walk around with families and help them pick out toys and other things that they needed, like sweaters and sweatshirts and pants and things of that nature, and then a bike for Christmas for a kid that wouldn't get it otherwise. And look, always with the understanding there's probably somebody out there taking advantage of it, but most times people who have a lot of self pride, and there's nothing wrong with that, who have been humbled because of their circumstances, who reach out, and I get so much more out of being able to do that than even what we do at our house, right? Because it's someone who truly needed it. I always, we're blessed. We are. We haven't always been blessed, but we're blessed now, and to know that we can help pass on a blessing to someone else matters so much. And that's really what you do with working with our veterans. I mean, they not only have they served their country, but they're human beings too. They've got spouses, they've got kids, they've got pressures, they've got have had some of the best jobs, and sometimes they're maybe looking for work. So they can be down on their luck, but it doesn't make them a bad person. It doesn't make them a burden to anybody. It's just a snapshot in time.
That's right. I just wanted to hit on something you said there, about being there for folks, and helping veterans when they need it. We got a most generous donation from Smithfield Foods a couple weeks ago that really allowed us to get further out there and deeper into the communities across the state. And with Veterans Day coming up, I wanted to make sure I highlighted this too. Like Ruben, right? Many veterans, as you said, self-pride's not a bad thing, right? But there are times when, hey, you got to self-center or be honest with yourself and say, hey, look, I could use a bit of assistance right now. But we had a veteran, Alicia Lear, who needed some furniture. She had established her home in Laurinburg, which is Scotland County down there on the South Carolina border. And she had reached out to us months ago and said, hey, I'm a single mom, got 4 kids. I need some help furnishing my home. Absolutely. We're happy to help. And, it took us, unfortunately, it took us some time to get down to her in Laurinburg. We do, on average, we have to do 9 to 12 pickups of furniture across the state, bring it back to our warehouse here in Wake County before we have, a critical mass of the items that the veteran has requested. And so unfortunately, it took us a while to get to Alicia, and I was standing there on her front porch, and, again, we had volunteers from Smithfield Foods with us that day. I apologized. I said, Alicia, as a fellow veteran, I apologize that it took us this long to get to you. And, she looked at me in the face, Jason, and said, it's okay. I know that there are other veterans out there who probably have more pressing needs than me. And I'm just thankful that you all were able to get to me. And man, it just tears you up to know that, there are veterans out there who have a need, right? And they need help, but, it takes some time to get to them. But she was just so gracious and thankful and appreciative. And it didn't matter to her that it took us, a couple months to get to her, because she knew that there were other veterans in front of her. And, that's very common with veterans. And what I mean by that is veterans always know that, hey, it could be worse, or I'm sure someone has it worse than me. So who am I to raise my hand and say I need help? When I go speak to groups or organizations about our nonprofit and what we do, I always close with, hey, there are 3 ways that you can help us today that don't cost you anything. And, the first 2 are, hey, find us on social media, follow us on social media, sign up for our newsletter, forward our newsletter, share a social media post on, LinkedIn or Facebook or whatever. But then the third thing I leave them with is refer a veteran in need. And that might sound crazy, but we all know veterans in our life. We go to church with veterans. Our kids go to school with veterans. We work with veterans in the workplace. We interact with them at the supermarkets. They're in civic organizations, whether it be volunteer firefighters like you serve, Jason, or Kiwanis or whatever. They're all around us, right? And all of them at some point in their lives are going to need our help, right? But what they're not going to do is show up and knock on your door and say, hey, my name's Greg Gebhardt. I'm an Army veteran and I need your help, right? That's not who we are. We're trained to go to the sounds of the guns, not to say, hey, I need help because of the sounds of the guns. And so I would just offer that to folks. There are veterans in your lives that you cross paths with every day that need help. And they're not going to knock on your door and tell you they need help. So I would ask, this as we, are approaching Veterans Day here in a couple of days, just have an awareness of those veterans in your lives that might need help. Because if you wait for them to tell you they need help, you're going to wait forever. And there are nonprofits across this state who are ready to help them in their time of need.
Well, when you said that, Jeff and I both are sitting here nodding vigorously that we know veterans and we know they need help.
And see, here's the thing too. I will say, and I've said this for years, that taking care of our veterans is up to we the people, because the government, is juggling a lot of balls and spinning a lot of plates. And we all know that the troubles that are inherent in that system. But the people, the boots on the ground, so to speak, are the ones that step up and make it happen.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
That's an opportunity. I mean, it's an opportunity to do good. Greg, you and I both have a mutual friend that used to couch surf, and we won't call him out by name, but served as a Marine and super guy, big heart. Has landed on his feet and doing fabulous. But when I first met him, he wasn't asking for help, and he desperately needed help. He was in a bad financial situation. Right. People had taken advantage of his kindness. Life was kind of screwed up for him. And, because other folks took interest in him, were able to help him and get him to a good place. And that's exactly what you're doing, Greg.
Yeah, no, and yes, that individual's a fine human being. And, I don't think his story is that uncommon, unfortunately, as you know. But if you're just having awareness, right, and walk alongside those folks, veterans, we're not asking for a hand out, right? We just need a hand up, and we need. I talked about my transition earlier. I was a guy who, I had a 4-year college degree. I married my high school sweetheart. I had a huge support structure in my home. I had a 6-month-old newborn when I transitioned. So, I share that to say I had everything around me that I needed for a successful transition. But man, if I wasn't in a dark place, because I felt like, I was contributing to society and giving back to the world in uniform, and then I wasn't suddenly. And, I share that to say, what are we doing for those young, junior enlisted soldiers that transition after, one tour of service, and they don't have that support structure. They find themselves in a foreign place, right? Whether it be a Marine at Camp Lejeune or a soldier at Fort Liberty who's transitioning and now trying to start their life. Find that young man or young woman in your community, at your church or whatever, and just offer your network to them like you did for that gentleman that you just mentioned, Jason. And you don't know the power of the impact you can have on someone's life with just a simple act of, stopping to say, hey, how can I help you? Or, what can I do to get you in a better place? And again, it doesn't take a lot.
It doesn't. We're right up against the break, Greg. If you hold on just a moment, we'll be back. Perfect, man. I want to make sure when we come back that we give an opportunity for everybody that's listening live. If there's a way to help you all, if they can donate, volunteer, whatever it is, if that's something are you prepared to talk about that maybe?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Yeah. And I kind of put the cart before the horse maybe and talked about the 3 things you can do to help us. Right. But would love to give a plug if you're okay with that.
No, perfect. It's a great conversation. People, hopefully we've got them interested, right? And they'll want to help. I'm sure they do.
Yeah.
and then we will get a flurry of calls. The last segments when we do our call-ins, I've told two of the candidates to call in that do their victory lap. So we'll get you on and off, and but appreciate you talking to me and Jeff today.
No, thank you. Jeff, I want to get to your level one day where it says amazing voice talent underneath my name.
It doesn't take much. I'm living proof of that. Do a couple stupid voices, and all of a sudden you're king of the hill. It's ridiculous.
Well, it's so funny because when we first met, we met through a guy who was working on film credits in North Carolina, right?
Okay.
And so this is ancient history when we still had film credits. And
yeah.
You and I have been in the middle of that fight. He used to work for one of our finance chairs. Okay. And we got Chris Carney will be waiting. Chris, we'll get you in here just shortly as we come back from the break. We're going to let Greg Gebhardt say his piece, and then we'll get to you, man.
Thanks, pal. Appreciate you, man.
All right, man. Cool. Then when you meet the guy and you've listened to John Boy and Billy all your life, and you hear just this voice or that voice, you go, that's kind of weird, right? It's so funny.
Oh, people still, say, do this voice, do that voice. And I used to go, guys, come on. But now I do it. I just jump into it because they just get such a kick out of it.
Well, absolutely. Well, every time I hear Ike Turner and
yo, what's up?
Every time I hear that bit, man, I go, that's my guy. It's so funny.
Can't do it now because cultural appropriation.
Right.
I can't do Mr. Yakisoda anymore because you can't pick on the Asians.
Right.
But they still let me do the Jewish movie reviewer.
Well, of course.
They still let me do Rabbi.
Ridiculous. Well, comedy is making fun of yourself and everyone else.
Sure.
Right? I mean,
it's not funny until someone gets hurt, and then it's hilarious.
Right. Exactly. We're getting ready to get back on, Greg. We'll get you on, and then we'll get to Chris.
Another, and we're doing nothing to solve it?
This is WSIC News Talk Now.
Hey, I just met you, and this is crazy, but here's my number, so call me maybe.
Welcome back to All Things Saine. I am your host, Representative Jason Saine. Joining me in studio today is my good friend Jeff Pillars. And on air with us has been Greg Gebhardt. He's the Executive Director of Military Missions in Action. Greg, before we let you go, I want to make sure that folks who have been listening to your story and to the story that you have to tell about helping veterans across this state, how can they help if they want to help?
Yeah, well, first and foremost, thank you for your help. As senior appropriator in the House, for your listeners that may not be aware, the state gave nearly $38 million to veterans' issues and their causes in the latest budget. So, Jason, thank you for that. That will go a long way to helping veterans across the state. But for listeners who might want to support Military Missions in Action, you can find us on the web at Military Missions with an S in action.org, militarymissionsinAction.org. You can find us on Facebook, again, Military Missions in Action. In those two ways, we're also on Instagram, X, at MMIA27526, the zip code here in Fuquay Varina. But yeah, just find us on the web, find us on social media, Military Missions with an S in action.org. And if you're inclined and can make a financial contribution, we will always take that 90 cents of every dollar. 90% of every dollar we raise goes directly to programming. For those that maybe didn't hear it earlier, we only have 3 full-time employees. And so, but yet with only 3 full-time employees, we assisted over 4,500 veterans in 2022. And we couldn't do that without the support of folks that, like the listeners of your show and those across the state. So yeah, militarymissionsinAction.org on the web. And if you would like to volunteer with us, you can fill out an application on there to volunteer. We serve all 100 counties in North Carolina. And in fact, we'll be back out to Salisbury in a couple weeks to make another furniture delivery. So yeah, thank you so much for the time, Jason. Thanks for all your support of veterans and their causes. And as I said, don't forget, Saturday the 11th, if folks are willing to pause for a moment, reflect on all the freedoms and blessings that we enjoy here in the United States as a result of veterans.
Greg, thank you. Thank you for your service, and thank you for your continued service in serving other veterans. Thanks so much. Great to have you on. I told you it's the great sign harvest, Jeff. That the great pumpkin has planted them, so I'm sure we're disrupting our newly elected, I guess you call him mayor-elect because he hasn't taken office yet. Chris Carney, new mayor of Mooresville. Chris Carney's joining us on the phone now. Chris, good morning to you, sir.
Thanks, Jason. It's great to talk to you, pal. I always say this, and I'll say it again. If you ever decide to leave the General Assembly, you and the radio go wonderfully together.
Well, I've got the face for it. I've always been told. So hey, you got Jeff Pillars in the studio with me. So
with the same face.
With the same face, right? Two ugly fat guys on the radio, man. But it's what we do. But you smoked them yesterday, almost 70% in that mayoral race. That's and you've been out of that game for a while, and your competition was a sitting town councilman. That's an impressive win, my friend.
Thank you, brother. Yeah, he served the last 12 years. Obviously we've been out for 10. And it's interesting because it just goes to show you there's a lot of focus, as you know, on Mooresville because we're probably about the 19th or so biggest town or city in North Carolina. And so many have been kind of going, more liberal. And so a lot of people are wondering, was that going to, with us having Mecklenburg County right at our doorstep, were we going to go that way as well? And it's nice to see that that's not really what Mooresville is looking for, just good old common sense government. And I ran on that, and I tell people all the time, our message was simple, getting back to customer service, getting back to the citizens of the customer, and we need to provide a service to them. And that's first of all, taking their calls and quit making all these reasons why they got to go through everything in the world to get somebody to get back to them. It's just a bad way of doing business, especially for somebody who pays your salary. So I ran on that, and obviously it must have been a message people liked because, it was about a 70-30 win.
Well, your point's very, very well made. It's like when people call my office, right? They don't want to call state government. They don't want to call city government. That is not the thing that they got up this morning and wanted to do. So when they're calling, they probably do need something. Yeah, we get the occasional people who want to, just complain and so forth. But most of the times they're really looking for help. And when they don't get it, that's why people have a negative attitude toward their, whether it's city or county or state government. They want someone to just respond to them. Sometimes it's just to hear them out.
They want to be heard.
They want to be heard.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I tell my staff that all the time.
That's exactly right.
Go ahead.
Well, they want to be heard, and then they want to know the next day that you actually did something about it, that you did. And this, people don't understand the lines of government like you and I do. And so often they're told, well, that's a county issue, that's a state issue, that's a federal issue. In my last 10 years, because, you and I are so close with like Patrick, McHenry, we saw how many times do you get called about passports? I bet I get 10 a year.
Wow.
And I could say, oh, that's a Congressman McHenry issue, you should call him. But no, you and I both do the same, and we pick the phone up and we call his office and we get them connected because typically they're in a panic. They're trying to take their family on a trip. They've saved up for it, and somehow somebody's passports got inside that 6-month window, and it's stuff like that it sounds simple and to the rest of the world, but I'll tell you right now, to that one family, it means the world that day when you fix their problem.
Constituent service. At the legislature, you got folks, we don't pay them a lot, so it's usually their first job out of college, and they're on a trajectory to go do something else. But I always tell them when they come to work in my office, hey, if you one, listen, 2, interpret what they just told you, and then 3, help them find the solution. Even if we can't provide the solution, we point them in the right direction. Right. Then you've done the world for them. And no is one, not an option. Yes, we're here to help you, and unless it's bad behavior, we're going to do our best to try to do that, right? And so and you'll get rewarded more times than not. Like you say, I mean, the passport's a great example. I did one just last week. Someone called me, just what you described. It was actually a trip that they weren't expecting to take, and so they were They were just overjoyed that they were going to get to do this thing, except for they just ran into a brick wall because they weren't going to get to do it because they couldn't get their passport in time. And we just picked up the phone and called the congressman, and they had somebody that could help. And, in a matter of a couple of days, we had it turned around. And that's not normal. That's, they really want you to try to do that stuff within the time frame that's set out there. But in special cases, they can help you. And they do. But, Chris, your point is that, people just want they want to feel like they're heard and that you can point them to a solution. I get calls about garbage pickup. Not my area. Nobody wants to hear that's not my job. It's, hey, that's not what we do in our office, but we know who can help you. Let us connect you with those people. And it means the world to them. So what are your big...
I will also pass on to, I'm gonna have lunch with Representative Mills. So I will let him know that you also said hello, because I've told him that I'm not wasting any time. I'm getting ready to wear him out on some constituent service, man. We need some road money in Mooresville, and I'm going to wear him out for it right day one.
Well, my channel idea is always an option. we can channel under Lake Norman. we can do it north and south, east, west. We just go right under the lake. I mean, nobody's using that property underneath. You've heard of the Big Dig. This could be bigger.
That's right. Jeff, I got to share with you, you're going to laugh about this. My daughter interned for Jason years ago. She's at law school now, but back in the day, she interned while she was an undergrad, and she came home one day and she said, Daddy, do you know how many times when I check messages, somebody either says that says that Jason is fat or he needs, or I hope he dies. She goes, what is going on in the public? And I'm like, baby, it is. And then she goes, and then they laughingly call back and say, I prayed about it, and what I said to you was mean. I'm so sorry.
I get those too,
I don't think
but
people realize.
I get those too, but it's usually from my family. So,
well, you just take it, you absorb it, and go on. I got one the other day. My staff loves to record them for me and then send them as a video. And we had this guy. He was obviously not a fan and a little perturbed. Also, judging by the accent and the fact that he called 5 other legislators, also probably not my constituent, but nevertheless, he felt compelled to call. And I played it for Coach Poggi at UNC Charlotte. I said, because he was getting criticism for some of the the lack of wins, and now they're on hopefully on a winning streak. But I said, look, man, our jobs are very similar, and I played him the message. He says, oh my God, that's far worse than any sports fan I've ever heard. Yeah. So hey, man, you're crazy enough, and you ran for it again. You knew better. You've served in public office, and you did it anyway.
I did. I'm proud. I mean, like I said, I love this town, man, and it's so. And it's hard because in a Senate district, as you know, like in a House district, it's such a big footprint.
Sure.
That but you always have love for the town that you live in, and I'm really excited about the opportunity to go to work every day for the my neighbors, and it's actually I would never have done it except for that, and I'm really excited to jump in.
Well, I know you love the job, and you are passionate about Mooresville. You chose to live there, and if you hear Chris tell his story about why he chose Mooresville, he just fell in love with it early on, well before you were ever serving in public office, and I think that's a credit to you, and I know the citizens will appreciate your service and what you will do as you serve as mayor. It's fun to watch somebody who's enjoying their work, and you don't have to do this. You're not using this as launching into your next career. You've kind of been there and done that, and then just wanted to right the ship and come back. So to your credit, man, congratulations, and want to give you an opportunity to do a victory lap. Jeff and I have been in here telling war stories and jokes, and we're getting ready to go to lunch. And you tell Representative Mills we said hello.
Thanks, pal. Appreciate you guys.
All right, take care. You've been listening to All Things Saine on WSIC. We'll be back next week. Thanks for listening.
The new 105.9